This is Lansdowne Road, the voice of the fans. Coming up, Duffer, he's a goner. Also, Keith Andrews, is he inching closer to the Brentford job? And is Evan Ferguson on his way to PSV? It's Lansdowne Road. Hello and welcome to another edition of Lansdowne Road. David Dunn here, joined by Conor McAvoy. And as always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll say it one more time. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't be illegal. Make sure you're watching us the proper way. Also, if you don't mind, please do like the video. Head over to our Facebook, Instagram, and our Twitter account. Don't forget to give Conor a quick follow over there at Rep Tracker over on Twitter if you want to find out what's going on with the current boys and girls and the future boys and girls in green. Also, head over to lansdowneroad.ie. That is lansdowneroad.ie. And one more time, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That should be a t-shirt. Conor, how you doing? Mad weekend we had in London. Yeah. Obviously, we had the event there with Mr. David Ford. Of course, that's an old ad. Don't try and buy a ticket. Or maybe you could buy a book if you want. Get on to Martin about that. He'll sort you out. He'll buy you a ticket for an event that hasn't happened already, Conor, won't he? But you're back in Ireland. How did you find London?
It was grand, yeah. It was good. It was a good weekend. It was good to get across the water and have our podcast that's coming out very soon and the live show and get absolutely scalded in the heat, which was quite nice. Be sweating my tits off, to be honest. But other than that, it was a good weekend, and it's good to get back on the recording side of things again. I know it's our first show since myself and Martin recorded on Thursday evening, so it's always good to get back on the bandwagon, as they say. But no sign of Martin. God knows what he's up to.
Yeah, Martin, our chief communicator. I know he's watching, or he will be watching. Hi, Martin. Yeah, no, it was good fun. David Ford, a gentleman. Of course, we did record. We had the live interview. Martin put together Martin. I'll start that one again. We interviewed David Ford. God, I'm having an absolute nightmare here. Just so excited to be back. That's so much stuff going on. But yes, we had a sit-down chat with David Ford in the studio in Finchley, and that will be coming out over the next week or so, we hope. Just putting that together. And then, of course, we went and had a live chat with him. Well, Martin did in the Claddagh Ring, a completely different interview. And it really wasn't it, Conor? Like it was, to be fair to Martin, he kind of went in a different direction and got a bit more about Ireland and a bit more about, we heard a few great stories about the president and Roy Keane and all that. So it was really good.
It was.
Yes. There you go. See, Conor's so enthused about it.
Were you trying to get... No, I'm just letting you profess and let you rant away about your love for Martin. Because it's not often you show much love to Martin.
I do. I said it to his face. No, I do. I do love Martin. Of course I love Martin. Just sometimes, just needs to communicate. That's all. Because we want to be efficient, Martin. We have to communicate. Sorry, lots of inside baseball terms covered in there, but anyway, do check it out. We'll be coming out on YouTube. Will be a YouTube exclusive. I sit down with Finchley, and then we will be releasing the chat in the Claddagh Ring, which Martin did a fantastic job with as well. That is also going to be put together. That will be a little bit further down the line too, so check it all out. Right, Conor, let's get into brass tacks and what we're here for. Of course, in a way, shocking news coming out of Tolka Park, Mr. Damian Duff. It was reported earlier in the day that he was stepping down. He told the players he was stepping down. It was broken by John Fallon of the Irish Examiner. And then it was confirmed that he has stepped down. 4 years in the job, current defending champions, League of Ireland champs with Shelbourne. Conor, shockwaves through the League of Ireland. Duffer, he's a goner.
Yeah. It is. When the going gets tough, Duff gets gone, as the quote is that all rival fans are saying about poor Duff at the moment. But I think it is a shock to everyone, Dave. It's a shock, but not a shock. We all knew this day would happen. It always felt like he's the type of, the way he controls the ship at Tolka Park and the way he manages, once it starts to unravel a bit, you might see everything blow up, and then he probably knows himself. but we probably thought maybe that would come later down the season, especially after the European run is about to start in a couple of weeks' time, and especially when they got such a favourable draw that I think it can turn around anyone's season. As what we seen with St. Pat's last year, they were going through a horrible time. Europe came, they won a couple of rounds, and then they turned into basically the best team in the league for the last 10, 15 games, and it's a big shock to everyone, Dave. The timing of it is even more shocking. Things started to in the last couple of weeks did really start to you've seen a difference in Duff, because he's always been mad. He's always been a character. It's always been the same Duff that we knew what to expect, and he'd always bring headlines to the league. But in the last couple of weeks, with the whole thing of going mad about people taking photos of him standing on the hill, and him bowing to the crowd after beating Pats, and then him absolutely slaughtering his players last weekend, saying about their mentality, and is it everything that's good for the club? Is it going through Duff? Is it because of Duff? So you could tell there was a lot of unrest from him towards the players over the last couple of weeks. So that's when so it's not really a shock.
No. And I'm just going to pause you there. Yeah, you could really see the pressure was starting to build on Duff. I thought, you see the stuff on the hill, as you said, and then he's kind of saying, "Oh, that's bad for the league." He's on about the players' commitment. He's gone on about his commitment. I heard some of the stuff he said in the last interview. Are the players training? Are they getting prepared training like players should be, like top level players? I still train like a player. I still prepare like a player, apparently, which is interesting. I think he referred to himself. It was a quote from Dan McDonnell on Twitter, and I think he referred to himself in the third person. Stuff we're going to sort it out. And I thought, really, are we the Rock now or something? The third person kind of thing. And I thought, this guy's losing the plot here. I think it was always going to go this way. I'm surprised. I thought he would have gone by the end of the season. I thought initially, I thought it would have been a sort of a dramatic. I always knew with his style of management, and I have said this, it's not for the long game. He's clearly trying to be like Mourinho. He's trying to emulate Jose Mourinho, sorry. He's trying to emulate Mourinho. And that has that is a finite amount of time for yourself and on players. Mourinho doesn't last in clubs, I think 3-4 years tops. And, Duffer has lasted 4 years here. He was burning a candle at both ends. You look at him, he looks like he's about 60. He's still a young man. He's only in his early 40s. Looks about 60. The stress, stuff he's coming out with. He's round with people. He had a row with somebody, didn't he? He was before the Rovers game. He's bollocking his players in the dressing room. The thing with management now, with that only gets you so far with players, and then becomes noise. So if if you're a calm manager, and that's how you get your message across. And then all of a sudden, there's a shocking performance. You come in and you bollock your players. They're like, oh God, yeah. But if you do it all the time, players after their third, fifth, sixth time, they go, oh, okay, it's just noise. It's just him being a gobshite, And it's a shame, really. But I always felt it would kind of go this way. I didn't think it would happen. I'd probably sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I didn't think he'd do it before the European games. You're going into the Champions League as champions. And it is a shame. I know he's a character, but the problem was he went from being a character to a caricature, and that's the issue. And the League of Ireland will be poor for him, although it's probably good that we get a bit of a rest from him now. But it's a really poor title defence. I mean, they're sixth in the league. They're way off the pace. They've had lots of 6-pointers, and they've got nothing out of them. And yeah, he's just hammering his players. He's clearly got as much as he can out of this group. And it is a shame. It really is a shame. He has been box office now, and I think the League of Ireland will be poor for him. But, and let's not take away what he's achieved, against that Shamrock Rovers side. And yeah, I can hear the text coming at me, but that Rovers side is a machine in the League of Ireland. That's a team that went to the Europa Conference League that looked very comfortable, by the way. Only got undone by Chelsea, who had no business being in the Europa Conference League, and were very unlucky to go out when he did. They went out in penalties, didn't they?
Yeah, to Molde, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a very good side in that level. They're a top team in that level. And, he went in there, and people are saying, oh, they're accidental champions. Well, at the end of the day, he was still champions. And he was still, he brought a wider scope to the league. So he's been very good for the league, and I think it's a shame the way it's gone. But I don't know, Conor. Even though I expected it, it's still a
Yeah.
surprise. But I
Yeah.
did expect it would be so, and I do think it is a case of I've had enough of this. I can't do it anymore. Could you
Yeah.
imagine, Jesus, what he must be like to live with?
Yeah, because I think it's the sort of thing. It's a weird analogy, but so imagine say someone is 100 years of age, and they do die all of a sudden. It is still a shock at the end of the day when it
Yeah,
does happen, but then at the same time you're like, not really. They're at that age now. It's kind of still he's at the stage in the Shels period.
he
Like
looks
I
100 years old.
yeah, I think he's the sort of fella that like um a lot of ex pros who played at the very very top with his sort of mentality. It's very hard for them to comprehend how other players don't think the same and can't do the same things that he can do. Particularly if like even some lads, even like you look like a player like Queeveen Kelleher, he has an elite mentality, but his elite mentality is a lot different to Damian Duff's elite mentality. It's a lot more of the cool side of things, cool and composed. While Duffer is just so brash and in your face about how elite he is. So I think that has probably been a big struggle for him, especially over probably the last couple of 6 8 weeks when you have to. It's so much harder to defend the title than it is to win it for the first time, especially when you think back to last season. They were very lucky in the end to win the title. They got that fluky goal really up in Derry. In fairness, they were over the course of the season, they were the best team. They started very well, got to the summer. They lost Will Jarvis, they lost Gavin Malloy, never replaced them at all, really, at all. And then they started really poor end of the season. You could see that Shels team wasn't, in your average year, a good enough side to win the title. But they were, in fairness to them, they started the season so well. They built up a bit of a gap. Rovers were too far away from them just about in the end. The same with Pats. Pats came out of nowhere to catch up on them. And I think it's come to this season where they haven't strengthened all that much. I seen that. I know they were trying to sign Jack Henry Francis in January and they're back in for him now, but is that too late for this sort of thing? Because like the only way they turn their season around at this stage, Dave, is if they qualify for the Conference League or the Europa League. Like it's a mad sight, to be honest, and it seems like Joey O'Brien's taking the side tonight in Waterford. Be interested now if they will. I seen Dan McDonald say earlier that if he wants the job, he'll get it, which I think is probably the smartest thing because he seems to have done an excellent job as assistant there, and
He needs the license as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, 60 days to get it, but he's already applied for the next course, so I think he'll be all right. Like if he wants it, he'll get the job, and I think he probably is the logical step because it'll still be very similar to Duff in terms of probably the day-to-day stuff and the style of play, etc. But probably not as fucking mental as Duff is, and you don't have to worry about going to another club like Drogheda. I know Kevin Doherty's been linked by a few names, and Drogheda fans are a bit scared that he might go there as an ex-Shels player and an ex-Shels or as a Shels fan. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Do they just go with Joey O'Brien and hopefully he takes it, or is Joey O'Brien going to leave and wherever Duff goes next, he goes with him? But maybe I'd say he probably will want to get into management eventually.
Depends really what the main cause was. I mean, I think stress. I think he has burnt himself out, but it is a case of, was Duffer. You'll hear about it as the weeks come on. By the way, I'm going to make a bold prediction. I guarantee you, Shelbourne murder Waterford, like a 3-4-0. Guarantee it. Oh yeah,
get their bets on.
I'm telling you now, they'll batter them. I'll be shocked if they don't. You know that whole thing. Like you'll know then if they absolutely murder that team. You'll know that the players that were fed up with stuff that they just had enough of them. It always seems to be the way, and it depends. The fact that O'Brien has taken over, would show that like, normally if the assistant goes with the manager, he goes straight away with the manager, doesn't he? So I reckon he will take over. So that would tell me that Duffer was the problem with the players. And you say,
he stepped away himself. It's a bit different when someone gets sacked. When someone gets sacked, usually the whole coaching staff goes. But I did see that Joey O'Brien was part of the people who wanted Duff to stay and tried to convince him to stay. So maybe it's the sort of thing that Joey O'Brien doesn't just want to leave and have to bring in one of the academy coaches to take the team for the evening. Maybe he feels because they've built such a bond at that club that it's hard just for all of them just to walk out the door like that.
Yeah, no, I think I've worded that poorly. Sorry. What I mean is that, like, Duff, the problem, like, he's got, no, I can't do it. And they're like, well, hold on, like, we got something here. We're happy here, and he's just got, no, can't do it. So I think yeah, I think he'll stay. I think he'll probably take over as manager. It is a shame, but it's kind of funny with the Shels fans saying, "Oh, he's in your head if you're giving out about him." No, no,
He was in his own head at the end of the day, wasn't
he was. You could tell he was falling apart. He was just intense all the time. You can't keep that up. I mean, he has a habit of doing this, doesn't he? Where he's not happy, he just storms out. Ireland, he did that as well with Stephen Kenny. He stormed out of the Republic of Ireland system manager's job. So if you're another manager, like I don't see him going to another League of Ireland team, right? Like that. If you're, I don't know, in England or anywhere in the UK and you're looking for a manager, a young, hungry manager, would you be looking at Duff, or would you be thinking,
he? No, you would be, 100%.
You reckon so?
Yeah, you can see what he took a team that was never. He took a team that had just been promoted to the League of Ireland, all the way to win the title against. Really, it was against all the odds. In fairness, with a lower budget than the rest of the big boys in Dublin, and he did gravitate. The attention he brought to the club, he brought new investors basically into the club by himself, new attention to the league. So if I'd say a lot of championship clubs would be looking on the eye of this and think Duff is the man we want, but does Duff want to go straight back into management? I'd highly doubt it, because he can tell he needs a break. Would it be the right? Maybe he would feel rejuvenated to go into a different job, and a lot of lads would be like that. They're burnt out from one job, but then it's something that's completely different, and it's a whole new aspect how you approach it. He done what he achieved to do in Ireland. Will he go to? Because I think Championship would be the level he would go to if he goes to a new job from here. I know we'll talk about Premier League. Yeah, we'll talk about a bit after about Keith Andrews, but I just don't think he will. I don't. He said before in previous interviews he'll never manage another League of Ireland club. Shels is his club now, but it is weird to think. I think it's Championship, and he'll wait for the right offer there. I think clubs are more likely to bring him in the Championship than they are to bring in Robbie Keane. I would make that sort of thing.
Controversial. No, I mean, and we'll move it on, but I think I'll imagine he's independently wealthy. It doesn't mean he need the money. He's doing it for the love of it. So I think it'd be up to him, really, if the right project comes along. But you'd probably be waiting for, I was going to say that, keep forgetting we are in the off season. Does he wait for someone to get sacked, before we when the season starts, early in the season, give him enough time? If you're a chairman, you look at him and go, he's a little bit of baggage. He does have a habit of sort of, walking out in a blaze of glory a little bit. When things aren't going his way, Ireland and now Shelbourne. But then you think, well, maybe if he's working with a more professional club, with a more professional setup, and with a higher budget, we can maybe support him and give him the support. Because it did sound like, according to Duff anyway, the stuff he was doing for his players, like he was driving them to find accommodation. He was doing, like, he was going way above and beyond what other managers would do, and maybe he would be a bit more isolated from that. He'd be a bit more sporty. You have a team around him, so he'd have more headspace. So maybe you could sell it to him like that. But I do think there's definitely value in Duff having a go if you're a chairman in the Championship. Maybe if you're kind of lower mid-table.
Middlesbrough could be a shout. Middlesbrough haven't got a new manager yet.
Middlesbrough, I think I don't know. I think it'd be too big for him. I think Middlesbrough's a massive club, huge stadium. Although Steve Gibson does give young I know he's not British, but he gives young British managers a go.
He gave Michael Carrick his first job in football.
He did, yeah. He gave Gareth Southgate, no, not Brian Robson. He wasn't around, but Brian Robson. But there is a track record at that club, so it is a shout. I think it'd be too big for him because that is a huge club, and they're way overdue getting back into the Premier League. So I don't know. I think somebody will take a shot. Who that is, I don't know, but I think it'd be worth a shout. Maybe not now, because obviously I don't think there's any vacancies, is there? In the
just Middlesbrough, I can really think of maybe Blackburn when a vacancy, because that'll probably come up again in the next couple of months. Because I know Blackburn just recently appointed a new manager, but I think Blackburn fans would absolutely die to see Damian Duff brought in as manager. And the reality is, I know we talk about this sort of stuff. We're talking about is Middlesbrough too big or not? But I think a lot of clubs think he's proven that he's gone to. Basically, Shels had turned into a minnow in Ireland whilst over the last 7-8 years, even 10 years. And he came in and Is it? I would argue it's a lot harder thing to win a League of Ireland is with Shels and get promoted in the Championship than it is with Middlesbrough. With all their money they have, with all the size of the club they are, some of
Yeah.
the players they have. If you look at that squad Michael Carrick had last season, they should have finished in the playoffs, and it shouldn't have even been a question. So I do think if you give Damian Duff the right set of players, and I don't think he's the sort of fella we can really ever go like he's that far out of his depth because he is just has that mentality to go in somewhere and just think. I think he'd go in straight away and think, I am the top dog here. Players listen to what I do. Obviously, I don't think he'd be a long term thing. But if clubs thought he is a possibility to come in, get us promoted, and if it doesn't work out when he gets promoted or he walks out the door of the season we get promoted, I think clubs would be happy enough because the money they have in England is always enough.
Oh yeah, and I think Blackburn actually is a very good shade. Only problem with that is that Venky's, the owner, are a bollocks owner. They're dreadful, and he's a firecracker. He wouldn't put up with that. And maybe Middlesbrough. I don't know. I think they need something. They need a bit. They need a spark, Middlesbrough. But who knows? Anyway, tell us what you think in the comments below. I'm sure this will unfold. Maybe that's it for Duffer. Who knows? Maybe he's had his fill of management. Right, we're going to move it on to another former player, and that is Keith Andrews. He's come out of the blue, this one. Of course, he was part of the coaching staff. Thomas Frank, who was the manager, he has departed for pastures new with Tottenham Hotspur. And yeah, he seems to be the favourite now to get the top job. He joined the backroom staff at the beginning of last season, I believe. So he's been there 1 year. He's impressed everybody there. The fans seem to like him. He was obviously Stephen Kenny's number 2 for his 4 years. Kenny, I think 4 years in charge. However, he's a bit of a Marmite figure in terms of the coach, Keith Andrews. I liked him as a pundit. Some fans didn't. And I heard as a coach, he was actually quite impressive when he broke certain things down. I saw him having a tete-a-tete with Niall Quinn on Irish telly when Quinn was on about the, giving us kind of, I don't like Niall Quinn, but he was sort of giving his very kind of broad brush strokes of, it looks better with the older players than Keith. And Keith went in and explained everything quite detailed. So he does seem to be a very detailed-orientated guy. However, obviously the Stephen Kenny era was doomed, shall we say. It was a failed experiment to the most degree, really. And I think he's been tarred with that brush, Conor, because a lot of fans, when we've put this out, and by the way, it has come up, Alex Crooks. Yeah, Alex Crook. Showing my age there. Alex Crook has reported Brentford are now closing in on appointing Keith Andrews as the manager. Andrews is now in advanced talks of stepping up from set-piece coach to replace Thomas Frank. Fellow former Republic of Ireland international Damian Duff has also been considered as a backroom staff option. Now, obviously, the Duffer thing there, we don't know. That could be just putting 2 and 2 together. I couldn't see Duff leaving Shels to go to another job. I think that would be a massive betrayal to Shelbourne.
Because he would have, because you can't just walk out and not. Because if he would go to another job, you at least get a club to come in and give Shels a bit of cash for it.
Yeah, and so I can't see that. I just can't see that happening. However, you never know, might happen down the line. So yeah, Keith Andrews, we've announced it on our social media platform. A bit very mixed response. There doesn't seem to be a lot. I wouldn't say mixed, actually. Probably, to be more honest, doesn't seem to be a lot of love for Keith Andrews, Conor.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of shock, really. Like, I'd love to know when the last time someone won anything took their first full-time job in the Premier League of any aspect in football. Like, has he even ever coached an academy side as a manager? Has he just gone straight in as being assistant manager with like Ireland and stuff as his first jobs? But I know it's because the thing is, you're a Brentford fan. Are you going to get excited that Keith Andrews been promoted from set-piece coach to manager? I'd say it's a lot of more anxiousness and worry from fans because they just don't know what they're getting. But if they are appointing him as their manager, there has to be something to him that he's doing behind the scenes at Brentford the last couple of years. Thomas Frank has been unbelievably impressed by, and the way breaking down things, what ways are happening. I remember he used to do a lot of punditry for EFL, and I always thought he was very good, which something probably a lot of people didn't really expect. And like, I think it's very hard to be too critical on him over this because we should be really praising him for the fact he's about to get a Premier League job. People are saying, I can't believe it, Brentford to get relegated. I just think we should be supporting the lad. I know a lot of us are. Like, I'm completely shocked that this is even an option for Brentford, because I didn't think they'd take this risk, especially in the Premier League. I know Thomas Frank was promoted from assistant manager to full-time manager with Brentford when they were in the Championship, but that was the Championship. This is the Premier League, where one bad season and you're back down in the Championship, and it is so hard to get out of. You can just get stuck there. So, like, it's a confusing one, Dave. Like, if it looks like he's going to get this job, to be honest, and I'd be absolutely delighted for him. He does. I think he'd prove a lot of people wrong. I think tactically he must be very, very, very inept. If he, or sorry, not inept, astute. If inept, astute, if he gets this job. And I don't think Duff, and just on Duff, I don't think Duff will go from being the main man at Shels for so long to go then be second fiddle at another club. I just don't think that's in his psyche to go be that second choice man at a club, unless it made him a lot of money. But yeah, it's a confusing one, Dave, because I'd be delighted for him if he gets the job, but I'm a bit like everyone else. I'd be a bit anxious and think this could be this lad's career done as a manager before it even really starts if this doesn't go well.
Well, yeah, no, it could be. It's a risk. It's a risk for everyone involved. But I do, yeah, I always liked him as a pundit on Sky. I thought he was very. Look, I'll tell you why people are very negative on him, because back in 21st of June 2020, I'm on a particular Red Top here website. I won't mention the name. Roy Keane labelled Keith Andrews a bullshitter. And he goes on, if I can make one point about the new Irish staff. This is what Roy Keane went after he said, I missed the job. I've heard a lot of bullshitters over the last 10 years, and Keith Andrews is up there with the best of them. Yeah. So a lot of people will remember that. And I think.
But why did he say, what was the reason he said he was a bullshitter?
My opinion on that is he doesn't go into that. But I do remember the interview. But my opinion is, because I remember when the Martin O'Neill era came to an end, Keith Andrews on Sky made the point that O'Neill was very lucky as an Ireland manager. And he was, by the way, Martin O'Neill was blessed as an Ireland manager, right? He had a lot of stuff go his way. And then we got found out about against Denmark. And then 2018 was an absolute disaster. Very slow-moving disaster. And you know how Keane is, and you know how O'Neill is, and they're two cheeks of the same arse, in my opinion. They don't let things go. And when they took over, that would have been close proximity to that, about 18 months when he said that, within 18 months. And Keane came out and said that about him. And a lot of people take what Roy Keane says as gospel, including Mr. Prendergast, who's not on here.
You're going to say that?
Absolutely. The amount of times he comes in and goes, I love Roy. And he shares a thing where Roy, says this amazing thing, but actually he's contradicting himself. But anyway. And I think that's a lot of it.
Or if he says it's about an Irish person, Martin will just ignore it. If it's about an Irish person, he just act like it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's where it's come from. That's where a lot of skepticism. Roy Keane wields incredible amount of power in people's minds in Ireland. A lot of people look up to him still, and give the lad a chance. Give Keith Andrews a chance. He could go in there and be a fantastic coach. And, Brentford are a progressive team. They're a progressive setup. They're an attractive option. And if they want to go within, if they want to hire from within, promotion. I mean, Liverpool did it for years. Barcelona were doing it for a little bit. And it always worked. So they know something that we don't. And they're obviously impressed by his work. And yeah, look, I mean, it's a big risk for Keith Andrews, but why not? What's the worst that can happen? He goes in, he tries a top job in the Premier League, mid-table side. All right, doesn't go as well as he would like. Fair enough. Then what does he do? He goes back to doing what he was before at another club, because you'll have some use somewhere. Even if he fails as a top manager, that knowledge, that experience will be indispensable to another manager, and he goes somewhere to join their backroom staff. He joined there. He was part of Chris Wilder's backroom staff at Sheffield United. And then he went to Brentford. So this guy obviously clearly has something that these guys like. So you know what? Trust him. It could be a complete pile of shite, but I hope he does well. Always liked him as a pro. Very limited player. Look, he's a student of the game. Roy Keane isn't, because Roy Keane had to come natural to him. And when it comes naturally to you, you don't need to be a student of the game. When you're someone like Keith Andrews has to work, and scrap and work his arse off. You have to study. And
Yeah.
now, he's a highly rated coach. So
He'll be in that Lee Carsley bracket, isn't he? Where people highly rate him as a
exactly,
coach.
who are actually in the semi-finals of the under 21s
And
championships,
can't
defending
wait for them
champion.
to lose.
I don't think they will.
They will lose. They got battered by Germany B team in the group stage. I think they'll lose in the final. I think they'll lose in the final. I think they'll beat Holland in the semi-final, and then they'll lose to Germany or France, whoever makes it from the other side.
Anyway, bitter. But yeah, no. Listen, best of luck to Keith Andrews. Hope he gets it, and hope it goes really well for him. Because then, if he does, then we have another Ireland manager that would probably love to come in at some stage, and sort of wash away the sense of the Kenny era. A little bit, but anyway, there'll be more on that to see how it goes. And of course, the final story is this man here, Evan Ferguson. I'm getting a lot of use out of that stock photograph, thank God. There he is. He is linked with PSV Eindhoven. I've seen a little bit about this, not a lot of the mainstream channels that I've seen anyway. Con, I'm sure you're going to correct me if that's the case.
No,
a lot of
no.
fan talk that he is linked to PSV. Have you got more on this?
Yeah, it was from Footy Insider. So Peter Rourke, who is quite actually knowledgeable when it comes to English clubs, when it comes to the transfer window in the summer in January, and he said that Evan Ferguson has been offered the PSV as a loan option for this season, which is quite interesting. Something probably no one really expects, whether that's 100% true or not, or maybe it's just been thrown out to there as an option for the club. When you look at PSV, obviously they're one of the top Dutch sides.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd score 600 goals in the Dutch league, which I'm only asking, but he'd do very, very well. I think, like, we all want to see him go somewhere and just tear it up. I'd much rather if he went to maybe the Bundesliga and he went to Frankfurt, for example, if Editike leaves this summer and he becomes the number 9 there, playing in the Champions League week in, week out, where I think he'd excel even more. PSV, I think it would get to the stage where it's probably like you probably send halfway through the season. If he scores 15 goals halfway through the season, you're like, was that enough of a test for him, if you get me? But he's liable not to go. He might go there and do poor, but I think it's such a good option to have that if it's thought by whoever's advising him and by Brighton, is that the right loan step for him to get by his confidence back, which is the main thing with him. It's getting his fully fit pre-season, which I think he'll get. I don't think no matter who you link him to right now, I don't think there should be too much made of it unless it actually something develops early. Because I think whatever will happen with him, I think will probably be made late July, early August, because he'll have a pre-season, I think, with Brighton. And if he just tears up with Brighton, like I know they signed that young Greek fella for like 35 million or something, whatever it was, but he's only young, very young, and he could go in and, like what we've seen with Hurtsler, what he done with Cashin in January, they spent quite a bit of money on him. He probably thought he wasn't ready yet and just left him on the bench, which he could do the same with this young fella's coming in from Greece, and it looks like Joy Pedro's moving out the door at Brighton. So I think if things go right for Evan in pre-season, we could see Evan just walk back into the Brighton team and people act like nothing happened really. So no, like PSV are the Dutch champions in fairness, and they're playing in Champions League next season obviously as well. So it's hard to I don't know what you think of it, but it's just hard to wrap my head around it. Is he ready to go to PSV, or is it just I could imagine loads of Premier League clubs will even want him. Even a Brentford, if Andrews gets a job, would Keith Andrews push big time because everyone knows how good Evan Ferguson is. Everton need a striker. I'm trying to think who else needs a striker. Loads, even all the promoted side, I'd say, will try and do everything to get him, but we don't want him to go to like a newly promoted side in case they have 10% possession every game.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, do you really want to be going to a team like Everton for him? I know he said Jason Knight would be perfect for Everton because, the work rate, that David Moyes gets out of his players. Someone like Evan Ferguson, no, I don't think he'd suit Everton. Brentford could be a shout, but then again, he could be going to a manager that could be gone. If he gets a job, he could be gone within 3 months. He could be gone within the first month of the season if it goes wrong. I've seen it before. I don't know. I think maybe the Dutch league wouldn't be terrible. Like, this lad's confidence is on the floor, and to go to a continental league would be Could be a huge learning moment for him as well. You know, like it could be, it could add something to his game, like Troy Parrott. But I don't know. There's a lot of ifs and buts and maybes, and I think there's a lot of broken promises there with Evan. You know, the whole Potter debacle at West Ham, and you know, I think he sold a pup there, to be honest. And you know, now there's questions coming out about his attitude. You know, does he have it? I think a rest from Brighton, maybe from the Premier League, just go over to the continent, get away for a year. He's still young. He's only 20. Go over there and just have a season on the continent, different culture, different way of doing it. It's still a good level. He'd be in the Champions League. You know, PSV I know they got battered by Everton 7-0, I think, last season, so they're not quite Premier League level. It wouldn't be a bad shout. Now, if he stays at Brighton, but you know, he's got to be playing. He has to play wherever he's going. He has to be guaranteed first team football, and somewhere where his game is going to be allowed breathe. There's no point in him being a sole guy up front with 10 men behind. Another 9 lads behind the ball and feeding off scraps. Doesn't do it. Doesn't do him anything. You know, that's for a 34-year-old striker. That's not for like a young 20-year-old striker trying to learn a game. So I don't know. I think I think the move to West Ham's done a lot of damage to him and his reputation, because now he went from being like the next, you know, sliced bread to sort of like moldy bread a bit. And I'm like, well, this guy, is he another flash in the pan?
He's a field wonder kid at 20. That's what people are already saying. Like,
yeah, and they won't look into the situation. You know, Irish fans as well love to put down one of our own first chance to get some of them anyway, not all of them. You know, he's washed up, he's done, and you go, well, no, it's nuanced. There are reasons for this. There's you know, football's all about sliding doors moments where, you know, he could stay perfectly still, and as you say, stuff around him happens, and he's back in the team again, has a good start to the season, and we're back. Or, you know, he could go and he could have a move somewhere, and it could absolutely destroy his confidence, like a West Ham. Or he could go somewhere and be absolutely phenomenal, and then he's banging in goals for Ireland, and before you know it, he's brought back early, and you don't know. Like, football is about luck sometimes, right place, right time, and I think he's had a bit of bad luck, and hopefully that changes for him. But anyway.
Yeah, it will change. Dave, as I've said to you, he'd be tearing it up in pre-season, and everyone will be back on the Evan Ferguson bandwagon.
There you go. And on that bombshell, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much, Conor. Thank you very much for watching at home. We will be back with the League of Ireland review as well, and other stuff throughout the week. If you haven't already, please do like this video. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really does help. We're trying to grow it. We have loads of content on its way to you. Head over to our Facebook, Instagram, and our Twitter account, and TikTok as well. We're on the old TikTok rep tracker and Lansdowne Road.
Yeah. And Dave, what must people do if they're listening on Spotify?
5-star review, please.
Yeah.
And please, a 5-star review on Spotify. It does help also. And head over to lansdowneroad.ie for opinion. lansdowneroad.ie. Right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much. I'm David Dunn. He is Conor McAvoy. This is Lansdowne Roar, and you're all very lovely. Adios.